Good evening and welcome to another edition of the Guyana Dialogue. The Guyana Dialogue is being organized by a group of Guyanese resident in the United States, Canada, the UK, the Caribbean, and in Guyana. It comes to you with a kind courtesy of well-known philanthropist and business executive, Mr. Dave Narayan, the CEO of Dave Wesleyan Imports. Today, we are very pleased to have one of Guyana's brightest civil engineers who will be our guest. And, and our panelists will be Dr. Sanjay Ramkisoon, and we expect to be joined later by Dr. Vishnu Visram. Um, Professor Budhu is our guest for today. He normally appears as a panelist on our program, but today, because of his expertise, we sought to get him to be the main speaker because we have some very technical issues to discuss about infrastructural development, the prospects and challenges, and how these are linked, roads, bridges, airports, water and air transport, how they are linked and affect one's in everyday living. So, including the challenges. So, Professor Budhu is
Hello.
here with us. Um, I need to give you a little background on him. Actually, he is from Windsor Forest, West Coast, Demerara. He attended primary school there. Then he went to Central High School, and from there he went to University of Guyana, where he was attached to the technology department. And then he went to UWI, got a first class honors in civil engineering. He was top of his class there. And then he went further to Cambridge University, where he did a doctorate in civil engineering, biomechanics, I think. Um, from
Geomechanics.
yeah, from there, um, I think he went back to UG. He was head of the department of engineering, and having taught there and work. But before that, he also worked on a number of projects. The Linden Suzel Highway. I happened to be working in the personal division at that time, and we used to interact very regularly. And he also worked on the West Damara Road on the hydropower project of feasibility study. So he has vast, and he also worked in the soils and materials lab as a technician. Then I think Terence Fletcher was boss then.
Yes, he was.
Okay, all right. So that was his. But I need to let viewers know about this man' academic credentials. He was also attached to the faculty of McMaster University in Canada, um, to SUNY University in New York, the State University of New York. He also was in the University of Western Australia. He was a faculty member there. And then St. Catherine's College, Oxford University, and then the Federal Technical University in Zurich, Switzerland. He was attached to all those. And apart from that, he has written 4 textbooks and written over 100 peer-reviewed technical articles on engineering. So he comes to this podium and he's part of the Guyana Watch with tremendous experience, academic, And so we are very pleased to have him. Today we're asking to talk a little about the development project, the roads, the bridges, the prospects, and some of the challenges, etc. But we'll go into details. But he can give us just a broad overview. But before you start, I just want to remind our viewers that tomorrow the six planets are in alignment: Mercury, Venus, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune. So make sure you look at that tomorrow. You may never see that again in I don't know how many years. So they're in alignment. Okay. So Professor Budhu, it's a real pleasure to have you as our special guest today on this program. And if you can just give us a brief layout of how you view the infrastructural development in Guyana.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much, Dr. Singh. I'm humbled by your introduction. Um, Guyana is experiencing one of the most ambitious infrastructure expansions in its history. As you mentioned, there are roads, bridges, highways, there are port facilities, airports, housing developments, energy projects, hospitals, there are schools, public facilities are being developed at a pace rarely seen in the region. In fact, I've never heard of any such development in this total in any Caribbean country. The central question is no longer whether infrastructure is being built, but whether policies, institutions, and execution capacity can keep pace with the scale and speed of investment, both public and private. It is policy of the Guyana Dialogue that panelist questions are not shared with the guests. So I have no clue on what questions will be asked and the ensuing discussions. But I need to provide the context for my response for you and your viewers to understand the limitations that I have in my responses. Firstly, I do not belong to any political party in Guyana or in any country. Also, I'm not a spokesperson for Guyana or any other country. My response will be based on data, analysis, qualification, and experiences. You have already briefly described my qualifications and experiences, and those are the basis for doing the analysis. The question is where the data comes from. And here's where I'm going to describe the limitations that I will have. After many decades abroad, I visited Guyana late last year, and you were aware of that. I met the president, the prime minister, and several government ministers and officials. I also met with the engineers and contractors, both local and foreign. The foreign contractors were largely Chinese contractors doing major infrastructure works in Guyana. I also met with an official from Exxon. I also spoke to the local Guyanese. I visited a number of projects, the gas to shore project, shore-based facilities, and construction of some roads and buildings. And Tara, you recall we were at 63 Beach looking at some of the development there in terms of tourism. Right. Over the last several years as a panelist on this program, I got up-to-date information from various ministers and businessmen. So this is my data bank. Lastly, I want to provide a definition of infrastructure for the benefit of our viewers and really to guide the conversation. 2 or so decades ago, infrastructure meant essentially roads and bridges. Today, infrastructure is much broader. We have, for example, digital infrastructure. We have energy infrastructure. And as we have Dr. Ramkisoon here, medical infrastructure and so on. One of the key connections I have with these is that they all involve civil engineering works. For example, digital infrastructure, they are data centers. In medical infrastructure, there are hospitals. In energy infrastructure, there's facilities such as the gas to energy facilities, and so on. All of these are intensive civil engineering activities. And lastly, here, infrastructure is not merely construction, it is economic transformation. That's what we are seeing in Guyana. So I look forward to a spirited discussion with you and your panelists.
Mm. Okay, thank you very much. Let me start by giving you a cliche. The local people often ask the question, why the government got to spend money on roads that you can't eat roads? Why they don't give us the money since we are starving or something like that? How would you respond to them?
Mm. So, good infrastructure reduces the cost of doing business. It improves mobility. It connects various communities together. It attracts investments. It increases land values, and every Guyanese know how housing and land is increasing values there. And it creates opportunities beyond, in our case, beyond Georgetown, right? So these road, bridges, and ports, energy systems
Mm,
become basically platforms upon which the private sector growth occurs. So
mm,
everybody benefits from this. Right?
mm. Now, I know in your previous appearance on this as a panelist, you always advocate for a national transportation plan to be made available or to publish so people can see the interconnection between roads, bridges, air, and sea and water transport, etc. The government do say that they have plans for each area, but whether they have it in published form, I don't know. You're trying to get information
Mm.
on that. Have you made any progress?
No, I have not made any progress. I didn't get any information. But let me provide a context here also. You know, 6 years or so ago, Ghana was an impoverished country. Nothing was really going on, right? And now we are moving at such a rapid pace. The government, this particular government, create a manifesto. It told people, this is what I'm going to do for you in the next 5 years. And unlike many other governments, they actually kept to their word. They tried to do as much as they can, you see. And in doing so, I think some of the planning that needs to go on didn't probably occur because they already had a policy and they want to execute that policy. And that policy consists of projects that takes many years to complete, you see, and do successfully. To give you an example, when the politician looks at their plan in Guyana, for example, they look at a 5 year cycle, right? When you are planning transportation system, in fact, any infrastructure I describe, it takes a years. For example, the planning part takes a long time. And in engineering, there's a saying, plan in three, construct in one. That means it takes 3 times to do the planning so you can get it right, then do the construction. Apparently, Guyana didn't have that a luxury. So we end up saying, look, we're going to build this, and they go ahead and building it, and they didn't have the capacity to do so.
Okay, the you mentioned about the value of the road, various uses. Also, I don't recall if you said that like people who are sick, for example, a good roadway will take in quickly. It can mean the difference between life and death in case of emergency. That's where the health thing is related to also the infrastructure. So, Dr. Sanjay, you want to expand on that and other connections?
Yeah, thank you very much. Good evening to everyone. It's always a pleasure to be part of the panel in this program. And thank you very much, Professor Budhu, for being with us today. You know, I have a question for you before we proceed. You, as a civil engineer, you guys have built roads many times.
Mhm.
Why is it that they always say it takes 3 years to plan and then execute and build in 1 year? If you've had so many roads built and so much experience in the past, why is the planning so important?
Well, let's look at how let's take it back again. Look at a politician. They're interested. Look, you want to build a road from A to B, right? The normal way this is being done, and it's not necessarily in Guyana, is that let's say the politician make that decision, you want A to B. Then that goes to the technical people, and they have to plan an alignment. Then they have to go and get public input, right? Then they have to do some preliminary design. They go back to the public. So it's a back and forth, iterations, black forth. You have environmental, you have a lot of lobbyist groups that are involved. Until you get to a stage that you have some kind of synergy between the various groups, then you go and do preliminary design. And when you do preliminary design, you go back again and meet the people, right, to discuss it, right? So regardless of whether we have the expertise in constructing a road, right, we still have to do this part of making sure that we plan it well. It is linking as part of this big network of moving people efficiently, moving goods also efficiently, and services. So that's why it takes time.
So, given the Heroes Highway was built so quickly, is it fair for us to say that the government did an excellent job in building that stretch of road in a very short, very, very short period of time? I think kudos to them and the engineers, right?
Not necessarily. Building something very quickly is one thing, right? Building it properly is different thing. You see, and what you want to do is to get long-term value. And long-term value in these types of projects doesn't come from speed. Speed is good, but value comes from doing it properly. Now, the question of Heroes Highway, and I'm not going to go to the details of the Heroes Highway. When you look at these systems, for example, concrete road requires, generally design life is about 40 years. If you build pavement with asphalt, it's around maybe 25, 30 years. Now, in the case of the Heroes Highway, because of problems with the construction, they now going to put rubberized asphalt overlay. Right? So now 40 years, you put down something on top, which is 25 years. And that is if you do it very well, right? Now, given Guyana climate, given the conditions in Guyana with the expertise, you can say, well, maybe it probably lasts you 20 years at the max. And maybe if and that's if you maintain it well, right? So let's give the benefit of the doubt, 20 years. So a road that you were supposed to last 40 years, now you have a road that will last you at the most 20 years. And now you're basically doubling the cost because you have to do it twice.
I see. Well, my issue or my concern with building roads is putting in safety, the safety nets, the guardrails. If there is going to be accidents, and so you want to prevent casualties at all cost. So putting in safety guardrails is one, and while the construction is going on, constant interruption of traffic. Having enough security there so that we don't have unwanted accidents during construction. So those are the only two things. And I agree with you. Guyana is known to have a very high level of cardiovascular disease. And if you're going to have an ambulance or a car drive someone with cardiac illness to the hospital, yes, you want good roads and you want to get there on time. Every minute counts. Especially if it's chest pain. We say it's a door to balloon time, but you always want that ambulance to get there as soon as you can. And that really, really helps. So thank you very much for filling in, letting us understand the difference with accuracy, building good roads that will last a long time, as opposed to getting the job done quickly. Now, this energy project hearing a few weeks ago in the media, we've heard some comments that there's a leak. I'm not sure if you followed recently in the media what was happening, but just talk to us about the importance, the safety network in building a gas to energy project that's happening on the West Coast right now.
Well, you have to have very good foundation. The gas to shore facility at Wales is being built in very soft ground, and so for our viewers, the technical term is geotechnical work. Really means soils work. Right? So very little soils work were done initially, and there was a lot of legal issues with the contractor and the government. And I think most of those were disclosed in the papers, so I don't need to go through that. And I don't know the details of it. But it is very clear that anytime you have pipeworks, put in pipeworks to make it simple, you have joints. And if you have any differential movements in these joints, you're going to have leaks, cracking. So for a gas facility, you have to ensure that your foundation differential movement is extremely small, right? And I don't know what is that value for that facility.
The ministry right now that is under the control of Exxon, because they are building that, and they will at the cost. There's one of the cost. But the Ministry of Natural Resources issued a press release explaining the whole process was happening. There was a leak, but not something substantial. But they said the contractors are working on that to check back, to verify all the things are in place. The gas has not yet been pumped into that. It's empty pipes. So they got to go through certain phases, and they have the ships along with them. These technical things which they got to do, and so they said it's not something significant, and I believe that they have already fixed that. But your point is valid. That's a cause of concern, and I think that there's a good sign that, as you said, guardrails is very important in all these developments. Okay.
Now let me add something more on this possible leak. I mean, if people sometimes get very excited when there's a leak. When you do any kind, if you look at the plumbing work you do in your house, for example, when a plumber comes there, he might test the plumbing, and there might be a leak because the gasket is leaking, right? You just replace the gasket, right? So these things, once they're not in operation during construction, they'll have to go through all of this and test each of these joints to make sure there's not leaks. So during testing, there may be a leak. No big problem. They'll fix it.
All right. Whenever we talk about our infrastructure, and we talk about roads, bridges, culverts, etc., but we hardly talk about ports. Now, the government is building a new port in Parica because it's hoped that produce coming out from the islands and from Bonasica area, rather than bring them to Georgetown and then you might export some, they could be exported directly from Parica to Barbados, Jamaica, Trinidad. In other words, they're making it an international port. They're doing it in two phases in Parica, and I don't know if they have a similar plan. I think they have a plan for a deep water port in Berbice. But how you view this development of having an international port away from Georgetown? Georgetown will still be there, but they got to continue to dredge them around for heavy ships. But Parica is a different thing. They don't have that problem with the heavy level of silting and dredging, etc.
Yeah, well, ports are just one of the nodes in the transportation network. So I'm glad that they're looking at various ports, and you have various water transport boats, for example, that apply these rivers. So Parika, I know because I'm from West Coast. I know you are from West Bank. Um, it's an important site heading towards the Essequibo. That region, I think, is vital for Guyana, and it's where all the beauty of Guyana is. I worked in the Buko hydroelectric project in the Upper Mazruni, so I am fully aware of the beauty of Guyana in that region and how it can be developed. Uh, well, managed development, right, in that area. In fact, I believe that Guyana has to strongly look at creating a new city in the Essequibo region because of climate change that's going to take place. And I think that needs to start now. And the Essequibo region is a key area for consideration. Um, so ports are vital. I know about a little bit about the Deep Harbor Port in the Berbice area, and I have suggested that because they have to dredge there continuously to have a port there, they should consider constructing a port offshore and link it by an elevated highway and a rail track to the shore. I mean, it's engineering that we can do. There's examples of that in China and other places where you can build offshore facilities and then link to the shore. And I think that will prevent these continuous dredging and costs that will be involved in this. Whether the government will look seriously at that alternative, I don't know.
Mm-hmm. All right. Thank you. Asif, we need to take a break now. Okay, we are back. Now, talking about it's a good idea if they can build, as you said, a city in Bartica. Um, we already have a number of tongues. A number of tongues. You have Bartica, you have Mamaruma, you have charity, etc. Probably those could be one of them could be developed into a major city. The status now is township or what they call a municipality. Now, coming back to the whole idea of doing this construction work, infrastructure, whether it's physical or social infrastructure, project management is very, very important in getting good quality product. Now, you've spoken about that in several times on our program. Can you let our listeners know why it's important to have good project management on every project?
Um, that is a essential component of any infrastructure work. Now, it is like you say, I'm going to build a house, and then you give it to a carpenter to build a house, and then you let the carpenter run amok, right? Then usually the people that put in any kind of wood, then you enter your house, and then it starts falling apart, right? Now, what you want to do when a designer completed the design and you produce engineering drawings and contract is awarded, it is the government or the client has to ensure that the building is constructed in the way it was intended to be. So you have to keep working with the contractor to ensure that quality is obtained in every aspect of the work. And if you don't be vigilant, then the work is not likely to be of very good quality and it will not last its design life. And the bottom line in all of this, that you will not get the value for public expenditure, or not even public, private expenditure, because the value comes from building that uh, structure to perform well, or for a design function. And now, if it's not done so, then you don't get your value. Your money is wasted. And I think this is a major problem in Guyana at the moment. And from my discussion with various people there during my visit, it's a lack of capacity. They don't have the capacity to the manpower capacity, and some of the supervisors or services do not have the experience to monitor these constructions. Generally, what happens is the contractor, for example, should have a schedule showing the various components of the construction and when it's likely to be completed. And they're supposed to build into that what is called critical path. These are things that during the construction will actually cause delay or cause overrun or cause more money to be spent. And a program manager would have to monitor that very closely. Right? I talked to some of the contractors, they don't have schedules. Right? That's a very vital part of any program management. Right? And a very vital part for you to get value for your construction, to ensure the construction is completed in time, right, within budget. And so that's an area that has been lacking. That I've written about that. I've spoken to various ministers about that. But I think it's a lack of capacity within the government uh, services and even private services. So, and that is part of the problem of having these large infrastructure work being done without having the human capacity to undertake such a work.
Mm. The other major constraints to development, many of these projects have it's they're delayed, cost overrun.
Mm-hmm.
But then you can understand why this has happened to some extent. Um, the rainy weather, we had several mini storms in Guyana. Then you have supplies. many things that they need to import might not be there on time. Then you have a shortage of labor, which can affect, right now, the construction industry needs much more labor. They are short. So all those could impact, negatively impact on getting projects done on a timely basis. So what
Yeah,
would,
but you see, Tara, that is part of the plan, the scheduling, right? Plan that has to be there. We take rain into account in this because if you know rain is going to be in May, June, right? You look at other activities that can be done during May, June that is not going to be influenced by rain, right? So all that has to be taken into account when you're planning your construction, right? Of course, there are lots of things going to happen there that you can't plan for. You know, if there's a war and the supply chain is broken, you have no control over that, right? But there's certain things you have control over, and I think those things have control over. I think it's not taken into account in some of the works that I've seen going on in the country.
okay, over now to Dr. Sanjay.
Thank you. Professor Budhu, what you're describing there is a situation where I think the diaspora could be a gift to Guyana. I think Guyana has suffered a brain drain for many years, and people like yourself and myself have migrated. Some of us received our schooling in Guyana, some of us migrated and received higher education in other parts of the world. And there's tremendous experience that can return to Guyana. How do you see the diaspora with this tremendous experience being utilized in Guyana at this current moment?
I have spoken about this to ministers, and I've written about this also. And I've seen the persons who head of the diaspora unit. I think the skills that are lacking in Guyana are within the diaspora. I have had many engineers contact me about want to help in Guyana. And I know when I met with you first, you talked to me about this, right? That you want to help in your area of medicine. I have to have people with people with legal background. I have people who in the digital space, they talk to me about this, right? And I've passed some of this message on to the various people that I know in Guyana. But I think they have to get serious and mobilize in the diaspora. I'm aware of countries such as India and China, how they're mobilizing their diaspora. And I think Guyana can follow similar strategy to use their diaspora. But I want to be very open here. There seems to be a disconnect between the local Guyanese and the diaspora. They felt that the people who actually left Guyana actually betrayed them. And Guyanese are known to be very hospitable and very welcoming people. But for somehow the diaspora doesn't enjoy that benefit there. And I have experienced that. I'm sure Tara may have experienced that also, right? So there has to be some cultural change that takes place. That within, and it's part of also because of the colonial mentality that is there. They don't feel that you can do as well as other people, right? With a different color, put it bluntly. And I think all that has to change. But the government has to be the leader here in trying to mobilize the diaspora to help in areas of need. And if they do that, a lot of these issues that are becoming very public, right, will be removed.
I think it would be imperative and very wise from the government to seek assistance, because if the projects are set up with good experience, with individuals with great experience and who understands the soil and who understands the structure, then once it's executed, we will see the difference, and it will have longer lasting, less expense, better economic benefit for everyone.
Yeah. Well,
And
let
I
me give
think
you let me give you an example
sure.
of a simple ways in which diaspora can help. I was recently hired a consultant to review a project, a multi-million-dollar project in Guyana. Unfortunately, it wasn't a peer review as such. It was actually a forensic engineer, and the project was already built. And I was supposed to diagnose what the problems and then provide solution to that problem. Now, I cannot disclose the details, but I could tell you millions of dollars were lost if a review was done at the very beginning, before construction starts. These are the kinds of things that the diaspora can help with.
Okay. Another important component is the social infrastructure, housing. Now, Guyana has a very elaborate housing plan. Right now, the Minister of Housing is in New York at the United Nations, where they have a 2 day discussion at the UN on each country housing plan and program for the future. Minister Colin Crowell is representing Guyana. Now, the Guyana government has done exceedingly well in this area in particular, where they have allocated over 53,000 house lots in the past 5 years. They have built over 2,000 houses, even though the building of the houses was not part of the manifesto promise. They have also will build within this 5 year term 40,000 houses, which will be allocated to various categories, low income, middle income, high income, etc. And professional housing they're doing for young professionals. So the problem, what people are saying now, is that it's not a question of getting the house lots or the homes, but the affordability, because with increasing prices in, cost of living is a bit high in Guyana. People might not, they might want a home, but might not have the capacity to service a mortgage, even though the government has worked very hard to get the banks to reduce their mortgage to less than 5%, and other things they have done, but like give them free cement and steel as a startup. So I don't know what else, how you feel about this and what else the government can do to get those people who are the bottom of the ladder to help them to get a home, whether they can subsidize them a bit further. Not everybody, based on income level, you introduce some kind of further subsidy beyond the steel and sand.
Well, I think, Tara, we have to look at this uh, in probably a more uh, overall sense. Guyana is growing very rapidly. And as I said, 6 years ago, it was an impoverished nation. And there was a certain mindset. Nothing was being done in Guyana. Anything get done, there were a lot of people, allegedly, there's a lot of corruption. And so now Guyana is growing very rapidly. The cost of living is increasing rapidly. Everything gets much more expensive, right? And if you're given a land within a couple of months, let's say that the house on that land would cost X. By the time you get the land, it will probably cost more than 2 or 3X to build that house. So the government will always have to keep changing the level in which they have to give assistance. And they can't keep up with just the lot. What about the housing? So again, it's a manpower, it's a policy decision, it's also a plan. You know Tara Bax, the minister, many times about the plans where these houses are taking place, and we were only given verbal answer. Oh, we have house in here, like we given house lot there, and I always keep telling him, why don't we have like a Google map showing where all the house lots have been given out, where the house lots are now being given out, right, on all the roads and so on that connect these things. We don't have that. So in looking at the big picture, there's no such thing, right? All we get is just short bursts of messaging. We're doing this, we're doing that, right? And I understand that from a political point of view for the local area, that's very good because we're building in your area, we're building so many houses. And I don't want to divorce the politics from the reality, because politics always win in these circumstances.
So the government has the information, but you're saying they haven't posted it in the website or make it available to the public.
Yeah, they have to put this together. And here again, that what Dr. Ramkusum said, the director can be of help here. How you put this together so it becomes a messaging to the people. This is what we are doing. This is the big picture. And if you want the smaller area, you zoom into it and see what's going on in that area. Right? So I think the government, if you look at what they are saying, they're doing quite a lot, right? But if the messaging is correct, people will get the picture that they're doing a lot more than what the sound bites are happening, or what is being posted on Facebook.
Okay. In the area of health, Dr. Sanjay, I know some of your concern, like digitizing, that is happening, and other kinds of 6 regional hospitals plus other hospitals are being constructed.
So those are all great things. Building more hospitals, building out the health centers, these are all great things. But like Professor Budhu is saying, we need a bird's eye view of what's happening on the ground. If you're giving out house lot in a certain area, then in that area, that neighborhood, you want to build a new health center. That area, you want to build a new supermarket, want to build other public buildings in that area. And this way, people won't have to travel several miles to go to seek healthcare. If you know exactly where the house lots are going to be, then you can create health centers in those neighborhoods. Of course, Georgetown is going to be central, but you can make satellite clinics. And
well, the minister did say that when they create these new settlements, housing schemes, they do cater for these things.
Right, but I agree, and Professor Budhu is saying it. You get more bang for your buck if you can put a picture out and say, hey, this is the area where we're going to be doing this amount of house lots. And within this area, this is going to be a health center or a 150-bed hospital. In terms of healthcare, that will help. There are other things within a community that's built out. If you look in Florida, every time there's a new housing scheme being built out, you will see a Publix, you will see gas station, you will see a hospital, a small privately owned or publicly run health center. So when a community is being built out, Professor is saying, it will be beneficial for you to lay out everything that's going to be happening in that area, even a playground or a school, primary, secondary school that's going to be built in that area. It will really help long term.
Well, as I said, the minister said they have all this when they plan these housing development. That's what they do. They include all
A
these
picture
things.
is worth 1,000 words in these things.
Yeah,
When you see that picture, you will understand it easier.
Yeah, I understand. It goes back to the whole idea of getting a message out there,
Right.
effective message. But what about they got all these hospitals, new hospitals. Now they have an impasse with the maternity hospital. It is building by the Austrian company, now they have to go to court because that building was supposed to have been completed already. That hospital up at Ogle is not. So quality controls comes in there as well. And but you don't have any insight into that, Professor Budhu.
No, I don't have any insight, but just from
Okay.
what you were saying, right, and what we were discussing earlier, program management or project management is lacking.
Mhm. And Dr. Sanjay, you have any insight into that?
No, I don't. If a company is contracted to do a job and they
Hmm.
can't finish the job in a timely fashion, then they should be charged. And
Yeah.
they should be penalized financially, and they
Right.
should not be given contracts in the future.
Well, the government has withheld payment, and they have taken the government to court. Um, but we'll see how that play out. But on the thing of going back to the hospital, you think they have a problem with staffing all these new hospitals that are coming into existence, Tushin, Region 5, etc. From your perspective as a
Dr.
medical,
Tara, the way I look at it, I think Guyana and Professor Budhu hit on it. In the past 6 years have been developing tremendously in every sector. And everyone is so excited and happy. And sometimes when you're so excited about all the developments that's happening, you're starting to miss key components of things. And the parents who are responsible for these excited children and the excitement that's happening has to take into account what's happening and have to be very cautious and have to put up guardrails. There's going to be increase in fraud. We've seen it. Um, and the prices and the gouging of things are happening. And we just have to be cautious about everything that's happening. The hospital systems are being built out. Like you said, there is one that's so delayed, so long. And the government, I think, is spread very thin, looking after so many projects all at the same time. Do they need help? I don't know. Do they need diaspora assistance? I don't know. I honestly don't know the key solution to the problem. But we just cannot continue having projects that's not being completed on time. That's not a very good reflection on the
mhm.
folks overlooking them.
All right. And on the energy front, back again to you, Professor Budhu. I know you had worked on a feasibility study in hydropower. Do you think that as part of a mixture of solar, hydro, gas, generated power, etc., you think there is, since they abandoned that power thing at, what's the name of that place?
Amelia
But do you,
Falls.
yeah, right. Do you think that there's still a lot of potential for hydropower in Guyana?
Um, the short answer, yes. Right. You have to have a mix of energy sources.
Mm,
The only source of energy that you can generate on demand is from hydropower. You need some more power. You just open the gates right through the turbine and you generate power. No other source can generate power on demand except for hydropower. Guyana has the largest, or probably one of the largest hydroelectric potential in the world. Right? Certainly, it is one of the top in South America, and we need to build one. Look, I wrote about this in the newspapers. I support them at La Fall, and I showed there were over 20 something studies being done hydropower over the years. Right? None were built. Some of them were investigated 2 and 3 times from foreign money. So you spend a lot of money doing the feasibility study and no actual execution of any one of them. Right? Amelia Falls was good enough, right, for what we want. but it's probably not good enough for the long-term planning of the country. You know, for one data centers, right? A very large data center, we utilize all the power from Amalia Falls. So it is, you have to look at what the country is going to be, say perhaps in the next 15, 20 years, and look at all your power sources, right? And then
Well,
start working them to
well,
generate alternative power.
the government didn't abandon the Amalia Falls. They said that's still on the drawing table.
Yes, so I understand, yes. And
And
I hope they get going with
yeah,
that as quickly as
and
possible.
it was blocked initially when
Mm,
they had financing for it. It was
mm,
blocked by the PNC.
mm.
All right, Dr. Sanjay, your final comment or question to Professor Budhu.
Well, Professor Budhu, I thank you very much for being a part of this today. There are many projects in Guyana, and we're moving very quickly. And we got to be grateful to the government for handling all these projects all at the same time. And the Guyanese got to be thankful, I would say, for all the developments that's happening. With the energy resolution, with this gas to energy project, with the mega transit connections and the deep water shipping that's going to be developed in a few years from now, which one of these projects you think that we're going to have our best bang for our buck 20 years from today?
That for me is very difficult to answer, right? Because again, this goes to the planning stage. You see, when you're doing your planning stage, you have to look at these projects and then see life cycle costs. You see, and during that life cycle cost analysis, that comes out all the benefits that are required for you in terms of long-term planning, right? And I don't know whether that has been done in Guyana. I haven't seen any documentation that this was done. Maybe it was done, but it's not. I haven't been able to secure anything in that nature. So I really can't. I can only make a guess, and I think it's very dangerous to make a guess in any one of them, given that the situation, maybe they start the project and the contractor defaults again, and we have these ongoing problems. So I don't want to make a guess.
Okay, there's one, viewers, one viewer asked, what are the potential for wind power in Guyana?
Look, you have to, again, if you continue what Dr. Ramsden said, you have to look at cost-benefit analysis, right? What is it which power source that we have, that we can develop for the least cost, right? We're not a country with a lot of wind, right? We got hydropower potential, right? We have gas now, right? And we have lots of sun. So my focus will be on those three things, you see. And then there are other things, biomass and other things are there, and they can be used in local communities, but not and they can be fed into a national grid, right? But I think our focus should be on those types of things, right? And again, what our plan is going to be in the next 10 to 15 years.
Okay. I agree with you 100%. Use what you have until you get what you want.
Yeah. All right. Thank you very much, Professor. So we have reached the program time, and now we'll ask you to make your closing statement, Professor Budhu.
Now, Guyana infrastructure boom is a once-in-a-generation opportunity. The country has the financial resources and the vision. As I said, I met with the president, and he's doing an outstanding job. He told me about some of his vision, and I think he's a down-to-the-earth president. That's the person who I believe is needed in Guyana to take this country forward. The next phase requires equal attention to governance, building institutional capacity, workforce development, maintenance. There's transparency, codes, standards. Ethics is important because that's an area I think is Guyana is falling down on. Enforcement and long-term economic competitiveness. The conversation should not be infrastructure versus development. It should be how infrastructure can develop or deliver the greatest and most lasting development outcomes for all Guyanese. And lastly, what I would like to do is share with you and your viewers the sentiment I expressed to President Ali. Here is it. When I left Guyana, I was embarrassed to say that I'm a Guyanese. Because if the person knows about Guyana, it is because of Jonestown massacre. President Ali and his government has restored my identity, my sense of belonging to this land of Guyana. And I can now proclaim that I am a proud Guyanese, born and raised in the land of many waters. And I hope you do.
Yeah, we certainly do. And thank you very much, Professor Budhu, for that statement. And I wish other Guyanese can take your position, and that very noble. And we thank you and continue your good works. And Dr. Sanjay as well. You know, Dr. Sanjay is doing a lot of charity and cultural work, humanitarian work. I don't know how much charity work you do, Professor Budhu, but I know you do contribute whenever we ask you. So there's another side of people that we look at the professional, etc., but we must also look at the cultural standing and how they help others in terms in need as well. So we thank you and thank you for your excellent exposition. You're a brilliant engineer, a great scholar, and from West Demerara. West Demerara produced quite a bit of outstanding people, as in Berbice and other parts of Guyana as well. um, and thank you, and we'll meet again on next Thursday, where we expect to have a professor of economics. Will talk about the development trust of Guyana. So thank you. Have a good weekend. And don't forget, make sure you watch the alignment of the 6 planets tomorrow. It will happen.
Okay.
There's a historic moment in all our lives. Good night. Thank you, Dr.